Hey comic fans, Dave here at Ground Zero. It's Wednesday morning. That means it is time for your weekly look at what's new on the shelves at your favorite local comic book store. Now, for those of you who have long since stopped remembering what month it is, it's February. Now, this is important because every February, Texas likes to set a few days aside just to dress up and pretend it's Wisconsin. It looks like a few of those days may be headed our way. Cold weather sweeping across the nation, so it's time to get prepared. Now, I hear you. You're saying, Dave, I don't remember what to do during cold weather. Got way more important stuff in my brain, like football scores. Besides, we only have a few days of cold weather a year. What is a Texan to do? Well, we're here to help with a few cold weather tips, which we'll do right before we get into the new stuff on the shelves. Cold weather tip number one, bring your pets and your beer indoors. Now, this is especially important if they are stored in bottles. And that's your beer, not your pets. Please don't store your pets in bottles. It never ends very well. But for beer, it is definitely important because beer freezes at 27 degrees, y'all. That's a fact. Take care of your beer and your pets, and they will take care of you. Go weather tip number two, batteries. They are not just for your lady friends. Honestly, keep fresh batteries around for flashlights and other portable devices. In case the power goes out, you can read your comics via flashlight, and your lady friends will thank you. Cold weather tip number three. This is especially important. I can't emphasize this enough. Check up on your neighbors. I mean, after all, they may have a couple of cases of Bud and Coors out in the garage, and when that stuff freezes, they'll be coming next door wanting to borrow your beer. And hey, we're all in this together, but there are limits, people. Finally, cold weather tip number four. I can't believe I even have to bring this one up, but you do. Make sure and stock up on comics before the cold weather hits. Nothing is sadder than seeing a comic fan tugging on a door that's locked because the shop is closed due to ice and snow, or even worse, getting there, having it open and finding out they're sold out of Batman. Don't let this happen to you. Moving on to comics, well, we might as well start with DC, and what a shock, Batman, it's in this week because it's another week, more Batman comics. But you know, this is particularly important during cold weather because everybody knows reading a Batman comic raises the average person's internal temperature by 1.5 degrees. That's another fact. And considering that we get both Batman and Detective has been weekly and done really, really well. I've been selling out all the time of this. And you put those together, that's 3 degrees temperature you will raise. Your pets will come snuggle with you. Now, is there more to life at DC than just Batman? DC says no. But I will actually mention a couple of other titles, particularly One Star Squadron, because this is written by Mark Russell. He is my new favorite writer. Definitely not as light as his usual stuff, not maybe quite as insightful as some of his indie work, but still a very good read, so you definitely should give this a try. I still have all 3 copies right now, all 3 issues in stock, so definitely want to give it a try. And a book that Michael thought he would be the only person reading, Monkey Prince. First issue of this, some of you may pick it up just because it's a number one. You never know when a movie might be made, but honestly, folks, don't do that. If you want to read a good comic, well, Monkey Prince is on the stands this week from DC, and not a Batman to be seen. Over at Marvel, well, we get the 2nd issue of Daredevil, Woman Without Fear. She is obviously slipping on the ice, so warning to all you people to be careful. And actually, this book also has done really, really well, so a new issue is on the stands. Other than that, we get a whole bunch of number one books from Marvel this week because they're number ones. Whether they're needed or not, Marvel says you will buy them. Starting with Sabretooth number one. Now, this is, I don't know how many Sabretooth number ones there have been, but probably more than he's got fingers, toes, and claws. And a new one is in this week for Sabretooth fans who have been missing a number one issue from him. Also number one, now this is a book that I actually am looking forward to. I read about 3/4 of this book last night. It is Fantastic Four Reckoning War. Now it's a number one, but it's actually really an alpha. It's not necessarily going to be a series. This leads into what's going to be happening in the Fantastic Four title. Folks, if you're a Fantastic Four fan, if you're normally reading Fantastic Four, you definitely want to make sure you get this book. It's got a lot of exposition, but it sets up what's going to be happening throughout the FF book for the next foreseeable few months. And it includes a lot of stuff that Dan Slott has been weaving throughout all the stuff he's been writing, going all the way back to a Silver Surfer run. Trust me, you might want to keep pencil and paper just to take notes when you're reading it, because it's a lot of stuff to take in. Certainly I had to. So either way, very important. If you're a Fantastic Four fan, make sure you don't miss this one. 3 more Marvel number ones I will mention, starting with a really good one. Excellent number one. This is absolutely the coolest of the lot. It's a sequel to Ecstatics that was done a decade or 2 ago. Honestly, probably the coolest X book that Marvel has ever published from Peter Milligan and Mike Allred. Everything Mike Allred is involved in is always going to be cool, and this is no exception. Now, if you're a traditional X-Men fan, if you love you some X-Factor, X-Force, and X-Men, this is really probably not the book for you. But if you're more of an indie fan who shuns the X-books, then you want to give this one a try. Trust me, it is really, really a cool, extraordinary book. And it's getting another start new this week. I love Mike Allred. His stuff is always tasty. Also new this week, brand new #1 issue of The Savage Spider-Man. I mean, you know, it wasn't enough to be amazing. It wasn't enough to be spectacular. For a little while, he was nonstop, although that certainly did stop. But now he's savage because, probably like most of us, he's a little savage curious. So now we get to find out just what it would be if he was the Savage Spider-Man. I don't know if you care, but it's here. One more Marvel book I will mention, and that is Star Wars Halcyon Legacy. Hey, it says Star Wars on the cover, and it's got a #1. This is like printing money for Disney, so there you go. Moving over to indies, remember about 6 or 7 months ago when there was just this burst of really, really good indie titles? Those were good times. Well, they haven't stopped because most of those books, some of them have gone on brief hiatuses, but they're still with us, including Noctera. I loved this book, and so did you, Scott Snyder and Tony Daniels. This has been a really big hit for us here. Took a brief hiatus, but it is back, so if you missed it, well, here you are. This is great. Also great is Crossover, what I think is Donny Cates' best book. Now, it's not going to sell nearly as well as Venom, partially because it doesn't have Venom in it, but it's a really good meta storyline for those of you who really like the intricacies of comic storytelling, per se. Good stuff for the serious comic fan, and kudos to Donny Cates for keeping it going. Also, kudos belong to J.H. Williams for Echolands. Now, you can barely read that logo there, but I really adore the art in this book. Honestly, it's got a pretty clever story, but if it didn't, I would still be buying it just for the gorgeous art that's in this book. It is just spectacular. It could print the Tyler, Texas phone book with that art, and I would buy it and recommend it to everybody. So you definitely should be picking this up if you haven't been, if you love good, pretty comic art. Also from Image. Almost all these books have been from Image so far, so as is the next couple. Yeah, all but one. Image books these days. Image is where the heat is at. Nita Hot's Nightmare blog, newest issue of that. This is actually done really well too, with the people who like Something's Killing Children and other horror-related titles have actually jumped all over this one. Also, obviously, Philadelphia, because this is kind of a spun out of Philadelphia. Done very, very well. If you like spooky horror comics, Nita Hall's Nightmare blog from Image. And then possibly the one that I am most excited to see back. It's been on hiatus for a little while, and that is Jeff Johns' Geiger. This book hits all the warm and fuzzies for me. Notice the checkerboard pattern on the back and the 80-page giant logo. This is an 80-page giant. For those of us old enough to remember those, it absolutely is going to send us all a tizzy. If you're old enough to remember the 80-page giants, please post so in the comments, because I would like to get more comments, more than 3 or occasionally 4 comments. So we'll see how many people actually remember the 80-page giants. If you do, the checkerboard pattern is definitely going to hit you where it really gets you. Great stuff in this. Variety of different stories with great artists. Obviously, Gary Frank is here, but so is Brian Hitch and Kelly Jones and several other good ones. Great stuff and a good introduction to Geiger if you haven't already jumped on that train. Now, you may be thinking, but these are all books that have already been going for a while, Dave. What about something new? Well, I haven't had a chance to read this yet, but Primos from AWA is getting a lot of pre-hype, so we'll see how it actually does. AWA's had some pretty surprise little hits going. This could be the next one. We don't know yet, but I haven't had a chance to read it. Maybe you can read it before I do. It's going to be plenty of time while the state is frozen over. Well, that's it for floppies. I got 63 titles, so quite a good stock this week. Don't know what's going to be happening next week with all the snow and ice that's going to be hitting the eastern side of the United States really hard. Really good chance that stuff will be late next week. Of course, we get stuff now from 3 different sources, so it's entirely possible that we'll get 1 or 2 shipments of stuff in, but then some of it won't be. You might want to call ahead and find out if there's something specific that you're waiting for or looking for. Meanwhile, we did get a few trades in this week. Fight Girls. This actually was really a lot of fun. It's what Frank Cho does best. Giant Amazonian women fighting to the death with, various gorillas, monsters, dinosaurs, things like that. So honestly, cool stuff, a lot of fun. Don't take it very seriously, and you'll enjoy it. And it's here this week, brand new. Also, for all you latecomer Moon Knight fans, Alex Malev and Brian Michael Bendis' run on Moon Knight is now collected in a good, thick trade paperback called The Complete Collection. So Moon Knight has never, ever been as hot as he is right now. So I know there's a lot of people that really haven't had a chance to read these yet, so kudos to Marvel for making it available. Going back to the ones that I really am more excited about is Doctor Strange. Now, they're called the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. Don't know why they don't just call them the Mini Marvel Masterworks, because they are a somewhat smaller trim size. But just that extra space that they take off of them really kind of cuts the cost down. This cost about half what an Epic Collection cost. This has the first 10 issues or so. Really not issues, because they were splitting in Tales to Astonish, but or Strange Tales. They were splitting in Strange Tales, and lots of cool stuff, lots of cool Stan Lee and Steve Ditko stories. This is where Doctor Strange really got his start as the purveyor of psychedelic magic. Fun stuff if you haven't read them, and Doctor Strange has certainly piqued more people's interest lately, as has The Mighty Thor. Now, this one actually hits me even harder. This is the meat of the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby work. Honestly, folks, I think the Stan Lee Jack Kirby run on Fantastic Four was some of the best comics ever done, followed closely behind their run on Thor. This is where we got the term Kirby Crackle. It is amazing stuff. It's just a ton of fun. If you haven't read these, every comic fan should, and it's here now in an Epic Collection. It's been out before, but it's finally a new printing because it hasn't been available for quite a while. So I will be pushing this on anybody that likes cool comics. One final book that I will mention, and that is the Milestone Compendium. Now, Milestone has relaunched some comics lately, and they haven't done as well as I thought. I really thought Milestone kind of got a raw deal back in the 90s when they were first published, and then they kind of got more fondly remembered after they were gone. So then when they came back, I thought this is a chance to rectify that and kind of correct the situation. Hasn't really played out that way. However, this is a good way, for those of you who are nostalgic for the 90s, a good way to get just an entire comic books line in one really, really massive trade paperback. This thing is... I mean, this will keep you warm through a Wisconsin winter. Probably not Texas, they're not long enough. But if you're in Wisconsin and you need something to take you through the entire winter, well, here you are. Now, speaking of winter, folks, like I say, Texas is going to be hit. I don't anticipate that it's going to have us closed here at Ground Zero, but we definitely are going to close at least at 6 for the next few days. Might be a day or two that we either open late or have to close early, certainly between Thursday and Friday. You might want to call ahead and make sure. Now, if you're in another part of the state, especially the north and eastern part, or certainly if you're around Illinois or Indiana or some of those sorts of places, then you absolutely want to check up on your local shop, make sure that they're both okay and that they're open. Folks, it's very important. Stay warm, stay dry, keep your pets inside, don't keep them in bottles. Always remember the 3 S's for us: like, subscribe, and share. And the 4th S is comment. All of those things actually help our videos get seen by more people, and we would kind of like that. So other than that, please stay dry, take care of your neighbors, take care of your pets, take care of your beer, whatever it takes to get you through this little cold spell. Remember, we love you, and it's not about having what you want, it's about wanting what you have. Folks, be safe.